Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
I know, spot on.
I wasn't looking at the screen. I was reading my notes, and it suddenly went bing bong, and it shocked me.
Well, there you go. Here I am.
Yes, hello, hola.
Indeed. What have you been up to then?
No, you go first.
Okay.
I've got so much excitement today. I'll just warn you. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 closely typed pages of notes.
Well, that's wonderful, because I'm a bit light this week.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so really take as much time as you like.
Oh, well, actually, it's not all for me. The last 2 pages are a lovely thing that a listener has sent in.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Now, you tell me about your week.
Okay. Well, it's been a funny week because the weather hasn't been quite as hot as I would like it, although it has changed now. It's getting hot now. And so I haven't really felt, I think I'm a bit like a native now. I don't want to go outside or swim or go to the beach unless it's really hot.
Unless it's worth it.
Yeah, some of the Greeks and the locals are still wearing anoraks last night.
I know. Jumpers. It's like when I used to go to Hong Kong. The people, like my brother who'd acclimatised, they'd be wearing a jumper, and the rest of us would be swimming in the sea.
No, it is mad. But I've been trying. I know, and I've been thinking to myself, because the real culprit is what I'm going to tell you about in What's Fueled My Fire.
Okay.
So basically, I've been learning something new, and I've been so engrossed with that, and it's been so time consuming that I've just not really. I've looked up, and it's been like 8 o'clock at night, and it's sort of too late to go down the beach, and it's too late to. Pretty much almost. No, it's not too late to go out for dinner or whatever. So I've done a little bit of that, but I've been thinking a lot about stupor going forwards, especially in light of what might happen with Brexit. And I've been trying to work out if I could go home more and what my life would look like if I did that. Because Phoebe, I know, misses me a lot, and but then I also know that if I was there, I wouldn't see her very much. You know what I mean? She likes me. She want me to be there, and if I was very local, she would pop round a lot because she used to do that at the other house. But in order to do that, I'd have to spend a lot of money on keeping a base in the UK. Although theoretically, I could just rent a room in their flat because there is a spare room because Erwin doesn't spend much time there. But I then have to go through the process of getting him to clear that room out because it makes me feel a bit claustrophobic because it's got so much stuff in it. And I'd have to get, anyway, so I've been trying to think about how I could divide my life between here and there and what my life would be like if I spent more time in England. And I think it wouldn't be as good as if I stayed here because I've got a lovely house, I've got lovely surroundings. So then I was thinking, well, get out the door then. Stop spending all your time on your computer.
Yeah, because actually, when you were in Shoreham, one of your main reasons for wanting to go to stupor was because you thought the weather would get you out the door more.
Yes, and to be fair, that it is. I've got my swimsuit ready. I am about to spend time on the beach, and that will continue right through to September, end of September at least. So we're about to go into the high beach season here. But I was thinking, if I'm just here, and also I've got friends here, whereas I don't have that many friends in England, and it'd be expensive, and there's so many reasons to stay here. But it looks like with Brexit, I might not be able to quite so easily. And Phoebe would obviously like that. So there's the tug of family, which will only get worse as the kids start having kids. And then I was thinking, I don't know. I'm just perhaps we ought to do a focus of the week about it sometime. Because
Do you know what hoops you'd be required to jump through if Brexit does happen?
Well, the main thing is I'd have to get a residency permit, which I can do because I can fulfil all the requirements for that now. But the thing with that is that you have to prove it's about whether they try and make you become a tax resident. And if you become a tax resident, I'd be seriously worse off because they start taxing you for the first pound you earn, rather than having a limited company. I mean, some of my friends say they can help me get around that.
Okay.
Legally. I don't see that's such a big issue. It's more about the emotional side of things, really, to be honest. And if I spent more time in England to be around the kids, I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a weird one. I've just been thinking about it a lot.
Phoebe likes it in stupor, doesn't she?
No, they're not coming this year.
Oh,
they don't want to. They don't want to spend their own money just popping over.
Well, I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking more that an alternative is it's cheaper to bring her out for a week more often than you to keep her home in the UK where you'll be less happy.
Yeah, she don't want to come though. They don't want to come. They find it boring here. There's no nightclubs. There's no, nothing. The bars are full of old people. There are not enough young people for them.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh well, it's don't envy that. It's a rock and a hard place, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So and I know some of my other we had this interesting conversation where she said something along the lines of, now that you're not grieving anymore, do you feel that you might want to spend more time with us? And I thought, oh, that doesn't sound good, does it?
Interestingly, you haven't left not to spend more time with them.
No,
you've left to achieve closer to your own ideal life.
Yes. Well, this is going to be a recurring theme.
It's a good one, Nicola. It's a meaty one.
Yeah, and it's going to raise its head through this week's recording. In various sections. So
okay.
Suffice to say, I haven't been getting out as much as I should. I remedied that over the last couple of days. I'm learning something new, and you know how I like to deep dive.
I think actually that's the reason why you haven't been getting out as much. You've been lashed to that machine.
I have been lashed to that machine. But no, it's all good apart from that.
Okay.
What about you?
Well, you're going to be very envious of my first one.
Am I?
Last Friday, I met Lisa Warner in the flesh.
I wondered if that was you she was talking about in the video.
It was. And the really fun thing was, although she stood in for me here on the podcast once, although she was in Small Business Big Magic for 1 or 2 years, although she was my first and perhaps my best low-carb success, and we feel we know each other terribly well. We'd never actually met in the flesh before.
That's amazing.
And she said, when I saw they'd moved the boat from Northampton to Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
And I'm very near Milton Keynes. So I sent her a message as soon as I got here saying, shall we meet up? And she suggested a place which was 9 miles from me. And it was a garden centre. My sat-nav thing of choice, Waze, it took me one direction and brought me back another, which I absolutely love. But it took me through Woburn, which is not only a beautiful village, it is also a gorgeous natural park full of deer and signs that say, beware swans crossing the road.
Lovely.
There's a safari park there, which is my idea of hell. But you have to go through a forest where there's yet another branch of Centre Parks that I've never been to a Centre Parks ever. But the scenery between here and there, I had a bit of an argument with Waze because it said, turn right at the end of the road. Like, turn right? No, that's not the way to where I'm going. Anyway, she took me to a beautiful garden centre, and I was there before her, and she was in another garden centre across the road by mistake. But I said to her, you know what the most surreal thing about this is? That's the sense in which they use surreal on the X Factor, which is I'm now the sort of person who goes up the garden centre for a cup of coffee, like everybody's nan.
Well, I've been well trained by my nanny to do that.
Well, quite. I mean, everybody I know who had a nanny long after me, I don't think my nanny ever went in a garden centre. I don't think they were alive when she died. But Sharon, who I live with in Kent, her mum used to like to go up the garden centre. And somebody else I know likes to go up the garden centre. I said to Lisa, giggling, because she's not even 50 yet. She's in her 40s. I went, look at us, we're women that go to the garden centre for coffee. But it was a spectacularly nice garden centre where we sat next to a pond with yellow irises and the sound of trickling water, which was more exciting for me than it was for her, because obviously moving water and yellow irises outside your window is more normal for her. Yeah. But it was absolutely wonderful. We talked non-stop for 2 hours. And, any excuse for going back there, because not only is the garden centre lovely, the food was lovely, and it was an absolute retail therapy heaven. How I managed to get out of there without spending any money. I made her leave. I made her leave me behind there because it was so nice. Didn't want to come away.
Well, see, now because I watch her videos, I know that Lisa is a very big expert on cake. So yes. When she said she was going to meet someone, she didn't mention your name, but she mentioned a podcast I listen to regularly, and 2 people. I thought it's got to be Judith.
Well, we didn't have cake.
Oh, what?
I know. Well, because we're low carbers.
Oh, of course you are, yes.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. I watch her videos. She does have cake on a regular.
No, well, I know that, but actually, she looked pretty good in the flesh. Going back to the conversation we've had on Facebook this week about linen, she was wearing linen and she had a stripy bottom on. She looked absolutely fantastic, and it was so lovely. And actually, I didn't think I'm sitting here with a stranger. I just thought I'm sitting here with a friend, and it was lovely.
Very nice. Good. Glad you did that.
But I've got more. I've got more in this. Yeah, I've got more in this section, which is I'm moving house tomorrow to stay in Middlesex with the Stupa woman. Interestingly, you should talk about the Stupa thing. And she hasn't been very well, but she's coming out to Greece for 4 weeks. Not the first week is not in Stupa. She's going on a walking holiday, but she won't actually be well enough to do the walks, which is a bit of a disappointment for her. But she rents a house or semi-rents a house out there all the time, I think.
Oh, I'd keep my house on, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've been packing up for the last 48 hours, and I might hurtle back to the garden centre later to get some sort of welcome home flowers for the woman that owns this one. Somebody's coming to help me from Airtasker with loading the car and running up and down the stairs with the bags so that I can hang on to my energy for the driving and the unpacking at the other end. But yesterday I had a little scarce moment. I thought, well, tomorrow I'm moving into my last booked house sit, which is for the month of June. And I thought, I asked the yes, no button, do I need to worry about that? It said no, but I ignored it and went on to trusted house sitters, which you'll remember this one where I am in Bedfordshire is the only one I've ever had from that house sit. But I went on to trusted house sitters and I found a friend on there, somebody I know in real life, offering 4 weeks from the 18th of July onwards. Yeah, so I PM'd her and she said, oh, I'd love you to come. And that's in Surrey, very near my family, so that's going to be quite handy. So I then applied on Trusted House Sitters for a week before that to fill the gap in a beautiful place in Suffolk, and they bit my hand off within like minutes of me saying, can it be me, please? So now I've got a gap in the first 10 days of July. It's a weird website, Trusted House Sitters, which I think I've finally cracked, but I've never really been able to get on with it. But, you know, so whatever. So I might have to...
They're based in Brighton.
Well, yes, the website, it's weird. You know, you put in your site search criteria and it offers you things outside of that.
You need to give us some feedback. Sarah was I think he bought a lunch to give us some come to Brighton. And
well, I expect she would do much better website feedback than me, but I didn't find it all that easy. But I think I might have cracked it now, actually. But the point of that story was, in the old Esther sense, it all happened so fast yesterday morning. And it made me go, wow. And if you can remember, that's exactly what happened when I was in Bromley and I got Gareth's and I got this one and I got your Stupa one all in like an hour one Wednesday morning. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So I've had a bit of a fun week with Lisa. And then a slightly scarce moment leading to some more fun bookings. And people...
What's the yes, no button?
Oh, there's a website called yesnobutton.com.
Oh.
And it's the same as throwing a coin. You just go on it when you've got a question you don't know the answer to. So, you say, I've only got another month's accommodation booked. Do I need to be worried? And it said no. And I thought, I don't believe you. I'm going to have to go and look anyway. It helps you make up your own mind. So that thing you do with clients where you go, I tell you what, let's toss a coin. And it comes down and they're either pleased with the result or disappointed with the result. And that tells you what your inner wisdom really believes.
Right. Okay.
Have you got it?
Yeah, I found it, yeah.
No, I mean, have you got the concept?
Yes, I understand the concept.
Yes, because sometimes you don't, or you don't get it from my explanations. That's good.
Yeah, no, I totally get the concept, yeah.
Oh, good. Before we come out of this section, gentle listener, I've got a gap for the 2nd to the 10th of July. So if you need somebody to look after your house and your cats, let me tell you, the cats that I'm booked to look after are called Gracie, Pedro and Pixie, and Smidge and Dizzy.
Oh, 5 cats?
Oh, no, that's 3 gigs.
Oh, right, okay.
Gracie for a week, Pedro and Pixie for a month, and Smidge and Dizzy for a week. But it's all lovely, exciting.
Smidge and Dizzy are good names, aren't they?
I know, they are good names, aren't they? Anyway, so tell me now about your thing that's fueled your fire.
Well, I have been learning how to trade. I started with just buying bits of Bitcoin whenever I could have a spare bit. of money, and then because I believe in the long term, it's over the long term it's going up, and I get lots of news articles, and I've been really learning about how blockchain works and all that business. There's been a slew of very, very positive things in the news recently, from things like AT&T in America are letting people pay their bills in Bitcoin, through to there's whole range swathes of ATM machines opening up all over Europe and America where people can just go and put in some dollars or put their card in and buy some cryptocurrencies. And anyway, I'm completely convinced it's the way it's going forward. But I thought I would like to learn to be a bit more active on this. So I started listening to somebody recommended the Chart Guys on YouTube. And I've learned quite a lot from watching their videos, just picked up, lots of terminology and how it all works. And they're completely free, and I just watch, every 2 or 3 days. It's not very often, but they release a new one where they analyse what's happening, and I've picked up a lot from that. But I actually thought, no, there's something about me getting in and out of trades that at the wrong time that wasn't working for me. So I've got an amount of Bitcoin I just keep to one side, and then I've got a bit I'd like to trade and try and grow. And it's something I can do in the morning and the evening and not actually have to watch the screen the rest of the time. That's called it's day trading. And if you trade a bit more lengthily, like, say weekly, say if you just want to look at it on Sunday morning, decide whether you're in or out or whatever, then that's called swing trading. But we learned all this from Marcus de Maria, if you recall. And I always found it really fascinating, but I didn't really grasp the concepts that you needed to do in order to be successful as a trader, which were to trade options, which is where you're betting against the market. And I didn't really ever fully understand how that worked, and it sounded too big and scary. And the other thing about investing in the stock market is you need, in order to make money at it, i.e. an income, you need to have a big reserve of cash which you're using as, because they'll only let you work with a percentage of your reserve, and I never had a reserve. Anyway, so all of that said, I finally bit the bullet and bought some of Dan the Chart Guy's tuition. And I've been wading my way through it, and I've also, so that's fueled my fire. I've been completely obsessed with that, because that's how I learn. I deep dive learning. And so the other thing that has fueled my fire is I can really see that I can grow my pot of money. And the nice thing about it is it's something you can do even when you get old. So I know, for example, I've got some friends out here. He used to be a stockbroker. So he used to buy and sell stocks for people, he used to do it for them. And he's still buying and trading himself. So he's creates an income ongoing. And I just thought that's so nice that I found something that I can do. Like, property investing is not my thing anymore, because I've never really been that good at going and looking at properties, whereas Sarah used to love to do it. So I'm glad that I found something that if I get better at it, and I will with study, then it can create an income into my old age.
Cool.
Yeah. What's fueled yours then?
Well, while I was, just as Lisa was leaving me in the garden centre with the yellow irises on Friday morning, I opened up my iPad, and you probably have it on your phone, I don't know, you get these sort of flashes that people have tried to contact you via various methods.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, wow, to Lisa, because a woman who bought a business from me 21 years ago had sent me a message via Facebook asking if she could call me. So I got my earbuds out of my handbag and plugged in, and she rang me on Facebook. And basically, in that 21 years since she's bought the business from me, she's built it up. She's created a fabulous brand.
Wow.
I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I want to protect this woman's anonymity, privacy, because the deal is ongoing. But she wanted my advice about selling it.
Oh.
And she's had it on the market with an agent for a year, just like I did when I sold my other business. And the agent has told her what it's worth. And a third party has come and put an offer to her, and she gave me the bare bones of it over the phone. She was pleased that I understood why she would want to sell it. She wanted to talk to me because she knew I'd got lots of experience of selling businesses that I'd created, and I'd created hers, but she's just massively improved it over 21 years.
Wow.
And this man was offering to buy it on an option, which is that, and actually it's triggered today. Well, several conversations that I've had this week have triggered today's focus, which I haven't given you advance warning about. But she was really pleased that I got it emotionally, how after 20 years of building your life's work, you'd be perfectly happy to sell it on to somebody else. And then she sent me the actual documents, and I perused it over the weekend and was able to give her some more tips. Her husband's a very clever man, businessman, and so he gave her some tips. And of course, her accountant and solicitor is going to be able to do that as well. But it was lovely, actually, to hear that a business that I'd started so long ago, not only am I relied upon by the woman who bought it to advise her on the sale of it, but that she's done so well with it.
That's lovely.
It is lovely.
The one clause I would always put into a contract like that now, having listened to John Davey.
Well, I've got that in my notes. Exactly right. That was the first thing I said to her over the phone. First of all, it's all stacked against you. Anyway, we're going into because actually focus of the week is how to negotiate any deal. But two lovely things about this woman. One is I went to her wedding, and two, she has two daughters who are now, late teenagers, either A-levels or going off to uni or something. But one of them, when she was very little, I had a meeting with this woman and I was late for it. And as you know, I'm absolutely never late. And the reason why I was late was I'd gone to look at a flat in Canary Wharf to rent. So it was 2004 and I wanted it very much. So I took the risk of being late for the meeting with this little girl's mother. And the little girl, I think, had only met me once or twice. And what she knew about me, she knew from her mother. And her mother was worried that I was late because it was so unusual for me. And the little girl said, "Oh, don't worry, Mummy, Judith's never late." So she knew, the little girl knew I was still coming. And when I got there, I had to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm late." And the mum said, "It's all right, my daughter knew you were coming." My reputation preceded me, even via a little girl.
Even tiny people.
Yeah, who was advocating for me, it's sweet.
Yeah, good. Okay, so that leads us straight into focus of the week then, which
I
have no clue about.
No, how to negotiate any deal. So I'm going to tell you, first of all, lots of stories about deal doing that I've thought about this week with that woman and with clients, yes. And because it's triggered a lot of thinking, just like you've done a lot of thinking in your two sections earlier today. Yes. So this is what my notes say. Then I'm going to give you examples of the sort of deal doing we've been doing. So I've got here, know what you want. So it's all very well for somebody to come along with an offer to buy your business, but what do you want out of it when you sell it? Know what they want too, because everything is up for grabs. Now, we've touched on this slightly before when we were talking about options, if you remember. And this is an option because the man has put an option to her. And I've said here, consider it may happen in 2 or more steps. So phase 1 gets us moving and achieves separation from the emotional connection to the asset. Then a sale is easier. So if you're trying to sell something like a business and a house, and Worthing, my flat in Worthing, but you're still energetically connected to it, it's not going to move as easily as if you'd taken some interim step. So, for instance, I'll demonstrate that further as we go. Ensure that ensure that both of you in the deal get most or some of what you want. Probably not all initially, but it might break the logjam to get things moving. So her business has been on the market for a year. This might not be ideal initially until she can complete, but it'll be, it'll get things moving. And you can have ideal next time or on completion. What we all want in the end is closure. Well, we can't always start there. It's back to this A to Z thinking we all do. We can't go, "No, I want an outright sale." Well, you can sit there then and wait for it, or you can do something in the middle that gets you both closer to what you want.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're stuck in limbo. And another client I'm going to tell you about in a minute, anonymously, she said, "I was in stuck thinking." You've got to open up your thinking a bit. And it's a bit like what you always say about easier to steer the car pre-power steering when the car's in motion. Yeah. If you look at this sort of interim dealers, or let's get into motion rather than being stuck in our thinking or in our limbo, then, the moving on cuts the emotional cords, moves your business or your home one step further away from you, the seller, or one step closer to you, the buyer, depending which role you're taking in this. So here are my examples. When my brother first came back from his last overseas posting, which was... where was it? Kuala Lumpur, I think. I might be confusing that with the lady whose house I'm living in. But anyway, somewhere in the Far East. He was buying, a big house. I don't know, let's say £2 million. I don't know what it was, but it could have been £1 million. But he was at the top of the chain.
Yeah.
And all the houses in the chain could only work if every deal worked. And what happened was, you probably remember this story, the one at the bottom of the chain fell out. But by comparison to what my brother was spending, the one at the bottom of the chain was about £100,000. So he bought that one too, so that the whole chain could complete.
Nice. Yeah.
Do you see the thinking there?
Yeah.
And actually not only did he buy it, but he sold it again for completion on the same day as all the rest of it. But the point is, somebody went, oh, and somebody didn't go, oh, that's it, we can't all move then. Somebody went, what can I do so that we can all still move? That's the thinking. It's open questions, which is what we do in coaching.
Yeah.
And one of my clients this week, who's been working with me for a year, and of course I've known all along she was trying to sell her house, and that until she could, she and her former partner, she and her ex, were sharing it. And that's a most unsatisfactory situation, which when the market is stagnant, many former partners have to do, and it's vile, obviously, because you can't afford to house yourselves either rented or bought until you've shifted the asset that you're sitting on. What I hadn't realised was how valuable her house was and how small their mortgage was. And once she told me how valuable her house was, I went, oh, and how much is your mortgage? Oh, it's tiny, but it seemed quite big to her. And of course, I owe him a bit more on top of that. Okay, so it's not a 50, what can we do? What can we do? So I went, what about ramping up the mortgage as high as you dare, renting the place out enough to buy it for you to rent somewhere else and him initially, and getting a tenant in that'll pay for both of you to live separately. So let's say you get a rental income of £2,500. You can each have £1,000 each to house yourselves separately. Well, that works, doesn't it? And I said, what you want now is a mortgage broker where you go off and it's already interest only. You get an interest only buy-to-let mortgage for as high as you dare. Even at 50 or 60%, that's enough to buy out her other half and start their new lives separately. And she would end up with a £1 million asset instead of a half share of one where nothing's happening. That could keep her for the rest of her life. But she needs, I said, go off and find a can-do mortgage broker who doesn't say, oh, no, you can't do that. Ask him ask them, how can we get this done? And she came back straight away last night because she's a very quick bird. She said, I found somebody. It all stacks. We can, the mortgage will go up to £1,250 a month, but the rent could be $2,700 if we do it ourselves or $3,000 if we do it through an agent. We won't be able to get a buy-to-let mortgage until we've rented out the house. Until we've rented out the house for 3 months to the tenants. But it means that she can do deals with where she's going to live. And I said, look, this is the deal I've planned for the house I want to buy because I'm homeless and it's empty. I will buy your house for full asking price. However, I want to move in immediately. I'll do that on a assured short hold. I will pay you the going rent. And on completion day, I want all the rent that I've paid deducted from the price. And if I don't complete for any reason, you've got an AST so you can boot me out and you keep the rent. And once I explained that to her, she totally got it and she went off and fixed it. Very quick woman. But do you see, you're looking for can-do mortgage brokers, not people who can tell you why you can't do it, why people will tell you it'll never work because they're closed-minded and they're wedded to doing things that they've always done it that way. Yeah. And that you must wait however long it takes. You need thinkers outside the cliche box, opening questions. How can this happen? What does the other party want? What do you want? What can you both achieve to get moving? How can you be in dialogue? How can you can't be afraid of negotiating, talking to the person and negotiating a deal. And it can all be written in the contract, including the jongleur's example of if the guy doesn't perform on the buying the business, she'll get it all back for £1. And I said, look, this is what I've observed. He's not giving you very much up front. And he promises you X and Y to complete the funds on year 2 and year 3. And he's offering you a salaried position for 2 years. You might want longer or shorter. All of this is up for grabs.
Yeah. But you just it immediately reminded me of house options actually when you started talking about that idea.
Yeah.
And it made me realise how we've sort of let that go off the boil a bit. And when you're I was going to ask, when your brother came back, was it a buyer's market or a seller's market?
I can't remember, to be honest. Yeah. But, he worked for a bank, so he could raise the finance if needed be to do it. But, somebody would have, if you're buying £1 million or a £2 million house, to buy another one for 100,000 is nothing, is it?
No.
It might be the discount you've already negotiated on the sales price.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you're buying an asset that can be sold again afterwards. It's not like it's a waste of money.
No. And funnily enough, the lady that I've advised about how to separate from her ex and end up with a house on her own and have it tenanted for ages at a profit, she lives in a house near my brother, which is called the same name as my brother's house. Isn't that funny? Yes, isn't it? But the point is, when you start looking for these examples, the man that's offering to buy my former business to my colleague that's run it for 21 years is trying to buy it on an option. And I sold my accountancy business on an option. And I said to her, look, I sold it to the man that she knows, who's notoriously mean. And he paid me half up front. And this guy was offering her 15% up front. I said, I don't think that's enough. You need to feel secure. You can get in a deal whatever you have the chutzpah to ask for, as long as it meets the other people's. And if it doesn't, then there's another negotiation. How can you make me feel secure? Well, you can make me feel secure, but if you don't pay me payment 2 or 3, it reverts to me.
Yes. And that is a good, and you've got to remember that everyone's going to come in with an offer that's their ideal scenario.
Right.
And there is somewhere, and then there's your ideal scenario, which is to get all the money up front. So somewhere between 15% and 100%. Yeah. There is a deal to be done.
It's a sweet spot. Yes. Yeah. And this man wants to acquire her business and grow it. And he's offered her a very small percentage of what he could grow the group into. So like 5%. Well, I would say I'd like 10, thank you. And I'd like it in the business that you're acquiring meanwhile. So actually she could parlay her one branch business into a 5 or 10% share of a group.
And my
which is based on her brand, for which she's award winning, and it's eco, which is the thing.
Yeah,
that's why he wants to buy her business, because of what she's done to it.
Yeah, I always nowadays, because I'm a notoriously bad negotiator, and I used to squirm inside whenever negotiations were required. But I've got a lot brassier about it in later life. So I always come at it and think, okay, what they're offering, what's my ideal scenario, and then I immediately double it, because I know that I'm always going to underestimate what I could get. So
well, I think it's a modification on coaching, Nicola. Proper, pure coaching that we were talking. You just ask open questions. What do you want?
Yeah.
What are you trying to achieve by the acquisition of this business, or by the renting out of your home, or me buying your home that's stuck on the market and won't sell? What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And do you remember what Rick Otten taught us? They're not trying to achieve full and cleared funds for the total price. They're trying to achieve enough to move on with the next step of their lives.
Yeah, it's very common out here to buy on option.
Yeah, I know,
and I know it's. I get all Dalton's Weekly for East Sussex and West Sussex on businesses for sale, and I know that all those people on there are trying to get a full and complete sale. But if they're not selling, I remember when I was trying to sell the Acacia. In fact.
You bought that on an option, didn't you?
Well, I bought that on an option.
Yeah.
And I think I might have sold it on an option as well. Because I just wanted out of the place by then.
Quite.
So I just didn't want the day-to-day worry of trying to, because it didn't get through the planning to turn it into houses. And I didn't want to run it as a guest house anymore. In fact, my interim investor bought it off me on an option.
Okay.
So
now all of these people I've talked to this week have all gone, yeah, but what if X does the dirty on me? What if he puts squatters in? What if I said, you can write it all into the contract.
Yes, you can. Every bad, and in fact, in the music industry, we were taught to sit down before you even read a contract.
Yeah.
Sit down and make a list of all the things that could go terribly, terribly wrong.
Yes, and imagine they might.
and then put it in the contract.
Yeah. Well, I've put here, how can both parties get most of what we want now, or enough for us both to start moving on with our lives and get the rest of it on completion? Do you see? Yeah. So it's just the movement we all want, isn't it?
Yeah. And you just have to open your mind, because so many people have got such set ways on doing things.
Yeah. And do you know what as well? Rather than looking for things in Dalton's Weekly, what might be good for everybody listening, and you and me included, is to listen to people tell their stories, which is, I've got a house, I can't sell it. I'm desperate to move. Why? Oh, because I'm living with my ex, or we can't live in Stupor anymore because of Brexit, or whatever it is. And then go off and say this used to be my expertise when we ran the money gym in the noughties. Let me go off and have some thoughts about this. And if you wanted, you could acquire somebody else's house,
a 3-bedroom house, and move the kids into it.
Exactly.
There, and then I get to stay whenever I come back.
Whatevs. Do you see the potential? And actually, do you know what I would do as well? I would start offering on things you don't want just for the practice.
You've got me going, Judith.
Because if you've got no skin in the deal, you're a better negotiator. But also, you could be a paid negotiator for other people who are too feeble to do that for themselves.
Yeah. The 3-bedroom house in Shoreham. If anyone's listening and you want to get
so 3 beds in Shoreham. Okay, I was thinking 3 beds in Stupor. How to get anything you want by listening, asking good questions, and helping the other person get what they want too.
That's lovely. I feel a new website coming on.
It's quite exciting, isn't it? I had a website once for options, but it was very difficult to persuade people in the UK. Property options in the UK only work when the market is stagnant, which if we'd thought about it, it's been stagnant for the last 2 years. But if there's a resolution in either direction on Brexit, then it won't be stagnant anymore. That's all that everybody's waiting for.
Yeah. So is that why you're house hunting? Virtually house hunting. You said, are you still spending time looking at houses in areas you might want to live in?
Absolutely. I've got a shortlist on Rightmove that's getting longer by the day. And the one thing that I say to everybody that I talk to that's trying to sell a house or whatever, I said, all the ones I want on Rightmove have been there for at least a year. Nothing gets snatched off the market.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because you can then write a letter to the person, can't you? After you could have little trigger points. So it's been on the market for 6 months. I
wouldn't do it with a letter. I've got to meet them. But actually, the deal I've proposed for the one I want to buy, I can happily offer that through. So to lots of the properties on Rightmove, because they aren't selling, are also up for rental. So if you go and view it and the estate agent says, are you thinking of buying or renting? You can say both. And then when you're in the presence of everybody, you can say, here's my proposal. I will pay X for your house, but I want to live in it immediately because I'm homeless. And I will do that on a current market rental and an assured short hold. So my intention is to complete, but if I don't, you can legally kick me out and you can keep all the rent. And if I do complete, which is my intention, I want to live there rent free in that time. So I want all the rent I've paid refunded against the full asking price, which by the way is slightly over the top.
You'll need to just go back on that last bit. I got the first bit. I'll short hold tenancy, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I didn't catch.
Well, what you might do, depending on the deal, is so the one I want, for instance, I would offer a full asking price, as long as my following needs are met. 1, I move in immediately on an assured short hold where I pay the full market rent.
Yeah.
If I complete, I want all that rent I've paid deducted from the price I've agreed to pay for the house, because that's in lieu of asking for 5 or 10% off.
Yeah, a deposit.
Yeah.
So you're building up a deposit, but what was it?
Well, it's not really that I'm building up a deposit. I can afford to buy it outright. I just don't want to pay to house myself somewhere else while I'm waiting to buy my own home.
Yes. So what you're saying is that by doing that, so are you saying that you set a completion date, in a year or 2 years?
No. If I've got what I'm expecting to happen, I'm a cash buyer, okay?
Yeah.
But it takes 2 months to buy a house, even if you are a cash buyer.
Right.
Meanwhile, I've got nowhere to live.
And they've got an empty house.
Yes.
Gotcha.
But normally solicitors don't like you to move in because you might change your mind.
Yeah.
If I change my mind, they've lost nothing. They keep their house and they keep my rent.
Yeah. Okay, I can see how this will work. And also the estate agents wouldn't mind it because they're getting 2 bites of the cherry. They're getting...
They're getting a percentage on the rental fee and then they're down the line. But I would probably only do that on a house I was pretty certain I wanted to buy and live in.
Yeah, of course.
And actually, if I wanted to buy houses just to own houses, I wouldn't need to live in them. So actually, you could do another deal if you need to. But you're not really taking advantage of people who are desperate to sell their house, although I see a lot of that on Rightmove. You are trying to find a solution where both parties get most of what they want now and all the rest of it at the end.
Yeah. Like it. I'm going to go on Rightmove and look at 3-bedroom properties in Europe straight away.
Well, I wouldn't. I would. If I were you, I would also buy properties in Stupa. Even if you can't live there, you can rent them out because people will be leaving.
That's true. They will. And
So you could buy your holiday home there like that.
Things take forever, and actually, solicitors here are very open to options arrangement.
The more things take forever, the better it is, because my friend's business had already been on the market for a year, and she's keen to move on with her life. And the other woman didn't want to live with her ex anymore. Do you see what I'm saying? And I don't want to pay rent if I don't need to. Do you see what I'm saying? It's it's all about meeting in the middle, which, if they fold their arms and say, no, we're happy to sit with our house on the market for the rest of, however long it takes.
It's weird. Some people are.
Well, then that's what they want, isn't it? Which is they're happy to have it empty.
Yeah.
They think somebody will pay the full price eventually.
Yeah.
And they're forgetting to factor in the erosion of the value of the thing in the meantime.
Yeah. Yes, interesting. We need a proper conversation about this because you've got me going now.
Well, I mean, I like a negotiation. It's fun because, of course, it's all exercising my brain. How could this work? How could this work? How could this work? And if you do it in committee, like you, me, the vendor's agent, or whatever it is, if 5 brains can't find a solution,
Exactly.
We're wasting our time.
But it needs a strong creator in there to be open to new ideas. And
well, we used to think that estate agents weren't thinkers like that. But do you remember my man in Worthing was the one that said, or you could agree with the freeholder that you will extend the lease, but you don't have to pay for it until completion, and then you'll get more money on the set. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It's not true to say that all estate agents are just commission truffle hunters.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, I have met a few, and I'm sure I know a lot more who are like it behind the scenes.
Yes. And actually, I hope that business transfer agents are like that as well. Maybe my friend will discover that when she, really, it's a tri-party thing, isn't it? Because if you're using an agent, it's what do they want as well? Because otherwise they could influence the vendor.
Yeah, that's true. So, I hope out of this discussion, everyone's got the idea that you could do this with businesses and properties.
You can do it with anything. You can do it with anything. You can do it with next month's rent.
And there's a great book actually that will open people's minds to this. It's How to Get Everything You Want from What You Already Have. Dan Kennedy.
Okay.
I think. And it's a great book, and it really there's a whole chapter on tripod negotiating like that. And how to get things that you want from someone who doesn't want what you've got, about how to get 3 people involved.
Do you know what I think as well? If people are listening thinking that could work for me, but I'm too scared, contact me. Pay me to do the negotiation for you. Yeah, I would love to do it.
You also, the good thing about you in negotiations is you don't get emotional. Your logic, pure maths and logic you are. Whereas I would get emotional. So I need someone else to help me.
Well, you've got to change what you want from the thing to what getting rid of the thing or acquiring the thing brings you what you really want, which is separation from your ex, not running this business anymore or running it on a part-time basis and having some cash so I can have more free time with my daughters while they're still at home before they go to uni. Do you know what I mean? It's always an emotional thing. If I sell or buy this, I think I will get that. What's that? That's what we need to know on both sides.
Yeah. And actually, we could talk about this in the Facebook group, couldn't we? Because this would be a great topic for anyone of our listeners who thinks, I want something or I've got something that I don't want anymore. Let's see how I can maximise that opportunity. Just for fun, actually. Yeah. It's got barter in it as well. What if you've got an apple orchard and you've got 10,000 apples and Sainsbury's won't buy them off you? Who will? It works for everything. I phoned a friend yesterday who is a volunteer at a food bank in Manchester, and I said, what is it that you need? And she said, I need 40,000 a year to pay a full-time admin member of staff to organise things. And I said, and how many Mancunians do you feed for 40,000 a year? She said 8,000.
or 5,000. And I said, how much is that? What's 5,000 into 40,000? I went, is it 80 quid? She said, yes. But last night I worked it out, it was 8 quid. So you feed. And then I went, oh, is it easier to get donations for 8 quid to feed a Mancunian for a year? No, it's not. It's easier to fund an admin person's salary for a year so that 5,000 Mancunians can be fed regularly. You've just got to look at everything from all sides and see, is there a better way of doing this? Is there a better way of running the NHS? Yes, but I don't want to do it. It's got to be something that I'm interested in. If my clients get what they want, that I'm interested in that. If we all get what we want, that lights my candle. I wish the NHS was better run, but I'm 64 and I haven't got time to do that. Sometimes I'd like to run Heathrow Airport, but I haven't got time to do that either. Because anything that's badly run is wasting its resources.
Yeah, they're actually looking for a new prime minister at the moment. Have you thought of that one?
No, that's much too big for me. Look what it's done to every incumbent in our lifetime. It turned Tony Blair into an old man. It's not. Yeah. It's horrid. Anyway, You get the gist of it, don't you, listeners? And actually, why not start doing it for fun, like I told you about, I think in last week's episode, where I said, when a boyfriend was a bit one-sided, I used to ask for things whether I wanted them or not, just to even it up. Practice your negotiating. Yeah. Practice asking for what you want.
Involved in any conversations like this, I ended up buying a £500,000 hotel, no money down.
Well, exactly. And there's one more point here, which is we need to find the episode that we've done that's very similar on this. We did an episode, a teaching episode on options. If I can find that one in our list of 230, I'll link to it in the show notes because it's related.
Yeah, good. And we've got further resources we can recommend in the Facebook group as well if you want.
Yes, we have.
Good stuff. That was a good one.
Good. And I didn't even warn you.
You didn't. I love the ones when you spring it on me. I love it.
I know you do.
Right, word of the week then.
Yeah, give me your word of the week.
Boundaries.
Okay.
Because I've been listening to lots of Dave Ramsey, who is a full-on Christian, by the way. And you wouldn't think I'd like him at all, but he's actually very kind and very firm, and he really helps a lot with people's family boundaries. And that's where a lot of the financial problems that they bring to him have come from, is not having good enough boundaries. And as someone who didn't even know about the word boundaries until about, 5 years ago, I find it absolutely fascinating to listen to them. So I've often got him going in the background now when I'm doing, looking at charts. And I just find it really interesting. So boundaries is my word.
Is he the man that's written these Total Money Makeover books, Financial Peace? How do you spell his surname?
Yeah. That's
okay.
Him.
It says David Lloyd Ramsey, the third American radio show host and businessman. Is that him?
The one.
Okay,
yeah.
Dave Ramsey. All right, good.
Yeah.
My word of the week, obviously, is negotiation, understanding what the other side wants and giving up some of what you do want so the deal can start to happen. What have I written here? Whilst contracting, so as not to assume too much of any risk, meet in the middle. So negotiation and learn to enjoy it. I bet there are some people listening who, are good at bartering. I'm not good at bartering, for instance. And if I'm in some Middle Eastern country, I don't want to barter for it. It's either worth to me what the price is or it's not. I don't do barter. But negotiation somehow seems different from that.
Yeah, interesting.
I think it's because I don't want shopping. So why would I barter for it?
Yeah. So you don't want it in the first place, really?
I don't want things. No, I don't want things. So I'm not interested in bartering. But I bet some people are listening who are thinking, oh, I'm already good at bartering. They would be, what were those people called down the
joint venture?
Traders, dealers, the people down the bottom right-hand corner of the, those people.
Yeah. Whereas I don't mind, I'm getting better at it. The word that springs to mind when I think about negotiation is squirm, because I didn't like it at all, but I'm getting better at it.
But you don't need to do it yourself, is my point. You have somebody with you who's got those boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a good point too, because that's what helps, isn't it?
Yes.
Good stuff. Okay, so project updates.
Yeah, you go.
Well, this is an interesting one on both these points, actually, because I won that website redesign.
Yes.
I rather naively assumed that it would be the whole website. I'd won the whole thing.
Yes, I think I would have assumed that too, to be honest.
Yeah, and it turned out that it was the redesign. Now, I'm at a point, I didn't really realise it till after I'd started seeing the designs and I was all sucked in. And then I find out I have to pay to have it coded. And apparently that's quite common with upper level web designers. And because Steve used to do the design and coding, I totally didn't grasp that. And I've had a conversation with James, who I won the prize for on his stage. And I've had a conversation with the guy who runs the company. And they're both mortified that I felt I was getting something that I now find out I'm not getting.
Yeah.
And we're trying, we're working towards it. So Greg's given me a really good price for doing all the construction of the website as designed.
Yeah.
And I could go off, like they could give me the files and I could go off and find someone cheap on Upwork to try and do it. Or I could, and I thought, okay, so what do I do now? And I really want this website now, of course, because I've seen what it could look like. And so we're negotiating. We're doing exactly that. I went back and I said, look, it's not that I don't value this. I really do value this, but I didn't have it in my budget to have my website redone. I love what you've done, and I do want it done, but I'm not willing to put a big hole in my cash flow and leave myself vulnerable. So what can we do? On the can we do a payment plan, for example? And he came back straight away and said, of course we can do a payment plan. Not an issue.
No. You just did a negotiation.
I did. Yeah.
Easy. You did it easily.
Well, the thing was, Judith, I could have just walked away and said, well, thank you very much for the lovely designs. I'll get them done in 2 years' time when I can afford them.
But you did some thinking outside the cliche box. Well done.
So I thought, how could I afford this?
Yay!
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And so we've had a really good conversation. So something that could have ended up not great emotionally in everyone's minds has ended up perfectly satisfactory for me and the designer and the person who gave the prize. So,
How perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So we're all happy. So that's where we're at with that, and should be up in about a month. It's taken ages though, but luckily I'm not itching for it. So normally I'd be very impatient by now, but I'm quite happy to wait for it as long as it takes. It's a big job. It's over 500 pages, my website, so they've got to test. They've got to make sure that when they move it onto the new theme, it doesn't wipe all my pages.
No, I quite understand.
Because they obviously can't sit and go through every page singly. But I've got a lot of pages that I don't actually need anymore on my website, so that'll be quite a good job for me.
Would that just mean the pages, the links didn't work? Because there's a thing
they look won't work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so... But I should really spend a weekend going through, but what a dull job that is.
Well, actually, I wouldn't do that. I would do X hours a month, because actually, do you need 500 pages? Does that have any value?
Well, lots of them are blog posts, luckily. So that as long as they get the blog post format template right, then they should all go over fine.
Okay.
But, actual pages, I've got a lot of pages on my site that have been created by various bits of software I've plugged in over the years that aren't required anymore. But in order to cull them, I'd need to go and look at each one. Because they are called things that I don't know what they are.
I wouldn't do that in one sitting, to be honest. That would finish me off.
Mind you, I could do it while I'm watching the charts going up and down. No, I need to get out more. What about you then?
I haven't got anything that's burning to be told in this section, and because my who or what's impressed is 2 pages that I need to read to you, I'm going to skip along.
Okay. On to who or what's impressed.
Yeah.
I'll go first because it's quick, and then we can end up.
All right.
So what happened with the chart guys, where I ended up spending $200 with them and joined his membership for $99 a month, was exactly the classic internet marketing funnel. Somebody recommended me to them. I went to YouTube. I've probably for a year now been watching his free videos. I like him. I like his sound of his voice. I like what he does. I like how he shares freely. I went to his website. I signed up for his $49 a month alert system. I've got value out of that, so I've now been paying more attention to his courses. I suddenly felt I needed to get a specific bit of upgrade on my knowledge, so I went to look and see what he had. He had something. I paid for it. I've accessed it immediately. It's a beautiful learning environment. He's done everything right. And he's made a lifelong customer out of me now. So,
and to somebody who's recommending him.
Yes. And I just thought, well, he's a trader. He's not an internet marketer, but he's managed to get everything right on the internet marketing front. And it was effortless for me to spend money with him because I trusted him. I liked him. I knew he had what I needed. I knew I'd get that much value or more back. So it was an easy buy for me, even at $200.
No like and trust factor. Tick.
Yeah. So that's it.
Okay.
Park Guys Dan.
All right. So this time yesterday, I couldn't think of anything I wanted to tell you in here, and that is to sit down and go, I can't think of anyone or anything that's impressed me or inspired me in the last week. Is a terribly low energy place to take up. So I went into our Facebook group and said, I can't think of anything to tell Nicola in this section for help. And I didn't get any help from there that I've chosen to use, but within nanoseconds of putting that request on Facebook, an email plopped into my inbox, and it happened so fast, a bit like the house sitting thing, that out loud I went, wow, not just about the story, which I'm going to tell you, but that it filled my need to go in this section no sooner than I had asked for help. Now, it's anonymous. I've asked her permission to share it, and I've edited it slightly to protect her anonymity still further, but she PM'd me after hearing us talk on this podcast about Esther and Abraham, and she PM'd me on the 7th of April, I think, and she said, please could you guide me as to where I can start a 30-day commitment to engage with Esther and co. And I sent her what I'd already prepared, and with the intention of turning it into a blog post, but I haven't got it yet. My thing I call my Abraham Hicks starter kit, which that went to her, and it has all the links of our favourite vids, the one in the morning, the one in the evening, the one that you can do anytime, the one that says everything is always working out for us, the one that Richard shared about how you know you're in the vortex, and the two that Kerrin shared about abundance and well-being. And this is what her email of yesterday said to me. Morning, Judith. Just thought I would feed back on your kind email introducing me to Esther and Abraham. So this is the 29th of May, and she contacted me on the 7th of April, 7th of 2022. That's like 7 weeks or something. I feel my whole body and mind swims with joy when I listen to Things Are Always Working Out For Me. Honestly, it moves me to tears sometimes. I love Esther's voice, enthusiasm and sincerity. She makes me smile. They are humorous, just in the right places. Source adores me. Brilliant. The addition of that pure and smooth voice that says pure joy underneath. Yummy. I've watched and read, listened to something pretty much every day since your email, and when I haven't, I miss it. Without sounding as if I've made things up, here are a few minor and major things that have happened so far. A few months ago, a piece of work I half-heartedly put in a proposal for, I charged more for this business because I didn't really want it. That work came in recently, and at a time when I now needed the money I didn't think I needed before. The reason for this is that recently I was left in a position where our family home was due to be repossessed. This is going back to a time where we had a suspended repossession order on our house. The deal was that if I missed any payments, they could enforce action. That was in 2015. It's now 2019. I made a late payment and they called it in. With my newfound alignment with Source / Esther and co, I just kept saying, things are always working out for me. And they were. As I sat with a piece of paper that was just awaiting an eviction date, I took a deep breath and called the mortgage company, who were not meant to talk to me. I was supposed to do it through their solicitors. I was able to persuade them that our new good financial situation is strong going forward and that it was one incorrect payment. They wanted more money. I now had this extra money available to me through the new piece of work I'd been offered. We now have a good way forward. So she saved her home from repossession. This one is even bigger. Early May, I was told that the cancer that had been detected in a biopsy 2 years ago, but then never seen again, was such a rare thing to happen that I am not only very lucky, but very unlikely to ever have cancer, presumably in that area, ever again. It would seem that the actual specimen taken at biopsy, which could have been taken from anywhere inside that part of my body, was the only cancer there. It could have been missed, cells further grown that might have developed more too. The biopsy was sent to Addenbrooke's Hospital to confirm that cancer was present. They confirmed it was there, stage 1A, but after having a procedure in 2016, when they examined me, there was no evidence of cancer at all. This was finally confirmed in my 2-year follow-up in early May that all was well. The consultant said, this is where the story ends. They don't need to see me anymore.
Wow.
One final thing to mention is something much lighter that I'm equally grateful for. After about the first week of your email, I went out on an appointment to see a customer, and I just knew I would run out of petrol if I didn't fill up before my journey. But I had no chance But I had to chance it anyway. That's me. I left the customer. I turned right instead of left. Car said out of petrol completely. 5 miles had depleted to 0. I came across a new roundabout about a mile down this rural road, and there on a slight hill sat proudly a brand new service station where I was able to get petrol. The man told me how quiet he was because people hadn't really started using the garage yet, as it only just opened. I think I cried at this one. I really did. I've always been woo-woo, but coming across Esther has been a real and beautiful thing. So much so, I want to go on her Western Mediterranean cruise in September. So, Judith and Nicola, thank you for sharing her with me.
Oh, wonderful. That's great.
I know. I talk about crying.
I bet you nearly cried when you were reading
Oh, my God. It was like, oh, my God. And I went straight back to her. So, no, please, can I read this on the podcast tomorrow? And if I'll change your name, she said. And then I sent her a revise, because I cleared out bits of the medical stuff. She said, why have you done that? I said, because I think it gives you further anonymity, because anybody listening who knows what sort of cancer you thought you'd got or where it was, they don't need a name. They know what you do for a living. You know what I mean? I wanted to anonymise it still further, but it's a fantastic story, even without knowing which bit of her body she'd got cancer in. Yeah. So I'm not going to mention her name, but thank you so much for writing in. Thank you so much for doing it every day. Thank you so much for enabling me to share this with the listeners. So if anybody hasn't got around to the Esther and Abraham stuff yet, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, and if you love the podcast, please give us a review, because it just keeps us going.
Yeah.
These stories keep us going.
Okay.
Okay, good stuff. That's us. Thank you.
All right. See you next week from Middlesex.
Oh, very nice.
Okay. Bye.
How do they do it? Not a care and suffering.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.